Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Monday nights on RCI TV. We're here at the Nurburgring for round 4 of the Euro Masters Season 2. We have travelled from the sunny skies of Monza all the way over to the home of the ring here in Germany, and, well, the weather has not followed us. It is grim showing here today around the Nurburgring as we welcome the 4th round of the season. My name is Ryan Gill, your lead host for this evening. We have Stewie Harman behind the cameras as per usual, but in the commentary box it is not the Ryan and Ryan show for round 4. We have a special guest for this evening here tonight. It is OVRC's very own John Dalton. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Ryan. Very excited for this opportunity, and yeah, let's hope we have some good racing tonight. Weather looks very unpredictable, I would say. Whether it's going to be fully wet, whether it's going to be damp and greasy, it's going to leave for some exciting racing, though.
Definitely should leave for some exciting racing. We've seen plenty of that all the way throughout the season so far. And just a recap for anyone joining here tonight, if you have missed out on the first 3 rounds of the championship, it was Wolf Matuszka that edged out the likes of Marek Vons at Imola for the first win of the season. It was then Wolf Matuszka that received a drive-through penalty for track limits, and Jarkko Torvinen that received a time penalty for contact with a GT4 car, which meant that he was demoted from the race lead, handing Harry Conway his first win of the season. And then Wolf Matuszka took the win at Monza on the last lap in style, getting past the likes of Marek Vons yet again. And those two pretty much been inseparable when they've been on track together. We'll have to see how all that shapes out here tonight. But the big thing coming towards the end of the practice session, John, is that we do not have a BMW on the top of the timing sheets for practice. We actually have a Lamborghini and Audi right up at the top, and it is Harry Conway who will end out the fastest in practice for 2:01.7.
Definitely makes a change to see something other than a BMW on top. Seeing the Lamborghini with some good pace there. Hopefully he can carry it through to qualifying and obviously onwards to the race. But yeah, some big names tonight in some pretty fast times. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this qualifying.
Yeah, we were having a look at the session earlier. We were looking at the drivers who were in the low 2s and estimating maybe that was the qualifying pace that we'd see out here. Harry Conway putting it into the high 7s to mid 7s. Probably changes that point of view that we have there. But Wolf Matuszka has got himself second on the board towards the end of practice. That's quite unusual for Wolf. He usually doesn't get out there and do much practice at all when he comes around for Monday night. So always interesting to see Wolf getting out there on track, getting those laps done before we get into qualifying. And speaking of qualifying, for anyone who is new around here, the way qualifying works for the Euro Masters is a bit different than how it would work to the rest of our championships. It is, of course, a multi-class championship. We have the GT4 cars out here as well, as you see Klaus Nearing on your screen heading down to leave the pit lane. So the way it's going to work is all the GT4s will go out on track first, and they will have 10 minutes to go out and set their qualifying laps. Once those 10 minutes are up, there is a bit of an overlap period. They can finish any lap they started within those 10 minutes. And then, once the final 10 minutes arrive, it is the GT3's time to go out on track and set their lap. So there is no clashing between either of the classes here today in qualifying, which is always good. Makes the competitive lap times between both of these classes nice. We have Mikael Sundstrom on screen at the moment. Klaus Nearing pulled over as he was leaving the pit lane. So Mikael Sundstrom looks like the first GT4 car who will be out on track, and he is running in the Alpine for the Nearly On Pace team at the moment in the 899. He's had a difficult season, Mikael Sundstrom, in the Alpine in the dry conditions, it has to be said, but he's made the most of it. And here at the Nurburgring, in these wet conditions, could this be the ideal opportunity, John, for an Alpine, which does struggle for straight line speed in the dry, to possibly get one over on its competitors?
Could be. Heavy front end of the BMW, may push wide in the wet. The mid-engine platform of the Alpine, possibly slightly better out the corners, although you've got some really long drags between the final turn and turn one. Again, very strong ground for the BMW to stretch its legs and definitely gain some on lap time. But yeah, definitely excited to see Sundstrom. Very quick driver, proved himself time and time again, and picking something slightly different could pay off in this race.
Yeah, Mikael Sundstrom's always been a fan of, going against the curve, should we say, and going against what is the popular pick. Usually why he likes to find himself out here in the Monday Championship, where we do things a bit different to the usual, when we have things like the Lambo Masters that we had earlier on with Super Trofeos and GT3s, and then there's all sorts like the Porsche Master Cup as well that we held not so long ago. I have just seen, by the way, we have live stewards here today, as we have had for all three of the rounds so far. John Eraser in the 699, as Mikael Sundstrom starts his flying lap for the session, has just been disqualified. Now, John Eraser is in the 699 BMW M4 GT3, GT3 being the specific tag that's important at the end of that. He has gone out in the wrong time slot for his class, and because of that, stewards have disqualified him from qualifying, so he will have to start at the back of the grid, and that is not the ideal situation for John Eraser to be in at this point in time, because you don't want to start at the back of your own class, but even less so, you don't want to start behind all the GT4 cars as well, because that just makes your job even more difficult from the get-go.
Definitely not going to be an easy one to start from the back of the grid. Nurburgring turn one, notoriously hard to get right for big packs. 3-4 wide up to certain points, especially in the wet. Misjudge your braking, cold tyres, cold brakes. Could be a recipe for disaster, and the further you start down the back of the grid, the more chance you've got of getting tangled up in something like that.
Definitely so, and looking at Mikael Sundstrom, we're on board with him right now as he makes his way around the Nurburgring circuit. You can see the rather unique display that we have on the Alpine. It's located on the wheel of the car rather as the actual dashboard of the car. Mikael Sundstrom working his way through at the moment. He'll just be looking to set out a banker lap at this point in time. The GT4s, they have to go out on stone cold tyres when they come out for qualifying and the race session as well. So obviously Mikael Sundstrom won't be looking at this lap to be his definitive qualifying lap time. This is just a banker lap to, go out there, get himself on the board, and then prepare himself for another flying lap immediately. It's part of the problem with these GT4 cars, such a short qualifying session, is that you really do have to fuel the car for the whole session, especially on the longer circuits. You might not have the opportunity to just split the session into 2 5-minute blocks. But here comes Mikael Sundstrom over the line, and it is a 2:11.190 for Mikael Sundstrom. And if I look at the practice times, that is in fact only a few thousandths of a second slower than what he achieved in the practice session. So Mikael Sundstrom, right from the get-go, almost beaten what he was doing in practice, and that is a very good sign indeed. Martin Ulrich will go fastest of the session, though, so far, and the first round of laps, a 2:10.585. The likes of Martin Ulrich. Now, he didn't do too well in practice, finishing down in 6th place, but obviously might have been testing out some race trim, maybe not focusing on the qualifying session so much and putting a bit more focus into the race, which is where the majority of the points will be scored tonight. There are a couple of points on offer for pole position and fastest lap this evening. Obviously, those are divided per class, so the fastest are in GT4 and GT3 get their own set of points respectively, and we will be able to show you the standings after qualifying as well, whilst we're waiting for the cars to line up on the grid. But here is Juraj Svenček in the 1:07 at this point, just finds himself under a second off of the provisional pole time at the moment. But it is good to see how close it is up at the top after the first flying lap of the qualifying session here, John. Just 12 thousandths between the likes of Ulrich and Harseveld.
Definitely very close. I mean, the thing I love about RCI events, especially the top tier teams, and they're always within this very narrow margin, which again, you know, 0.2 of a second a lap in a race could be the difference between winning and losing a place. So always very, very close between the top guys, and it's why I absolutely love RCI completely.
Yeah, so very, very competitive up towards the top, and looking at Peter Henneberg here at the moment in the number 11. This is a car that has been fighting its way up through the field throughout the course of the season, finds themselves 2 seconds at the moment on their banker lap off the pace. That's not where they'll want to be. The BMW M4 GT4, you know, it does like the circuits with the long straights where it can really stretch its legs. I mean, plenty of power under that car, and the straight line speed that it can use is incredible. But in the wet, maybe that starts to work against it a bit. And these cars don't have an incredible amount of aerodynamics and downforce to be generated by the car. It is purely mechanical grip that they have to depend on. Peter Henneberg will cross the line. He'll be much, much better on his second time by. But by the looks of it, I think he's pulled over to the side of the track, and that should be his qualifying session done. Don't think he'll get out and improve anything on there. But Juraj Svenček, in the meantime, has gone provisional pole. We have 3 drivers within a 10th of a second right at the top, and it is 2 Porsches sandwiching the Merc of Martin Ulrich at the moment in the number 44.
Definitely looking very close at the top. You know, whether the 22 can improve, not much, but again, if he's on the limit, it is a lot to find. Just that tiny little bit more in a margin just to push yourself up to P2 or even P1. But Porsche looking very strong, one in P1 provisionally, and another in P3, and yeah, it's a good mix of the Porsches going down the order. A few Alpines dotted in between, but again, Mercedes looking quite strong, 2 of them near the top, so yeah, maybe BMW not as strong as we think here.
Perhaps not. Klaus Nering has got a BMW in 5th place, though, so he'll be looking to change that narrative perhaps around here. Calandrino, who did exceptionally well out at the first round of the season, and then at Monza, he's sitting in 6th place at the moment, and then is Mikael Sundstrom, who we saw earlier on in 7th place. We also have Eric Engman in the Alpine here tonight. Nicholas Norquist not showing up this evening, unfortunately, in the 3rd Alpine. He will be absent from this race, so we only have the 2 little Alpines out here today. And looking on board with Martin Ulrich, we can see here how much he's working to try and get this car around, try and maximise as much as he can. GT4 cars can cut the curbs a lot more than the GT3 cars, but the problem is in these wet or damp conditions is that the curbs can be lethal, especially if you catch them at the wrong angle. And here comes Martin Ulrich, and he will retake provisional pole as we work our way down towards the end of the GT4 session. 33 seconds remaining for any GT4 cars to cross the line and start their final flying lap. But Martin Ulrich He's thrown the gauntlet back down. He's retaken provisional pole by just over a 1/10 of a second for Juraj Fencek and Floris Harsford. They're going to want to come back firing on the last lap here.
Definitely looking very close, like you say, with the cold tyres at the start of the session. Tyres probably starting to come into their window now. Times are going to start improving. Rain looks to be easing in the next 30. Whether or not that'll affect the GT3s, who knows? A lot of temperature in the track at 24, so hopefully we'll start seeing some more fast times. Looking down the order, some of the deltas are green, so this could be a good end.
Definitely could be a good end. The timer has expired for the session, so no new laps can be started at this point. They can only finish up any laps that they did start before that 10-minute session expired. We're currently looking at the provisional pole sitter, Martin Ulrich, as I look over to my timing boards as well. Floris Harsford is up by just about a 1/10 of a second. They'll need to find a bit more than that if they want to take that provisional pole away from the likes of Martin Ulrich or Juraj Fencek. Fencek is down by 4/10 of a second. They will not be improving enough, I don't think, unless they can find a monster amount of time in the final couple of corners, which I highly doubt so. So it looks like Floris Harsford is the only driver pole now. I've heard the GT3 cars just revving up their engines and driving out. They have been released onto the circuit, so they will be starting their qualifying session in just about a minute's time. And I think Floris Harsford, he has returned to the pit lane. He's invalidated his lap, so he will not be taking away that pole position. So it looks like Martin Ulrich has done it, unless Fabio Calandrino can pull something out of the bag. He is up on his lap by about 2/10 of a second, but he'll find almost half a second if he wants to take away that provisional pole. We're looking at Peter Henneberg right now in the 77, who's working his way around, got himself into the top 10 with the BMW M4. Have to see how much he can improve. He's up by 2/10 of a second, by the way. Calandrino does cross the line and improves up to 5th place, but nowhere near enough to challenge for provisional pole. And Peter Henneberg shouldn't be challenging for pole position either, unless he gains 7/10 of a second out of this final corner, which I highly doubt he will. So it looks like Martin Ulrich with a 2:10.430 will take another pole position this season, and it will be the 44 on pole for the 4th round of the season. Peter Henneberg crosses the line. He will stay in 9th place. And then, well, now it's time for the GT3s. We heard them going out onto the track earlier, and it is that man right there, the championship leader, Wolf Matuszka, who is looking ready to take to the session, and he'll be the first one to cross the line and start the flying laps for the GT3.
Really excited to see what kind of times these guys can pull out. Like you say, Matuszka, a big name in the scene, very quick in practice, although the Lambo's looking very strong as well. So were they on a slightly heavier fuel load? Are they going to split the qualifying session in 2? Will they keep going? These newer tyres, they do tend to get better the longer you run on them. So ideally, do you save the weight on the fuel, or do you run your tyres slightly longer to see if you can get a bit more grip out of them in these wet conditions?
It is an interesting strategy how you can split it for the qualifying session, as we're on board here with Wolf Matuszka, and we'll get to see exactly how the Audi tackles the wet conditions. We had Ryan Wilson in the box last week who told us plenty about what it is like to tackle any circuit in the Audi in wet conditions. And you know, is that something that, I mean, you're familiar with, John? I mean, how many times have you taken something like the Audi out in conditions like these? I know predominantly your team fancies the McLaren with Seb Brunier as your race engineer, but I mean, how much have you dipped into, say, the Audi in conditions?
I've dipped the Audi a little bit. I did an endurance race with another community on a random lucky dip co-driver, so we all got drawn a random AM driver to go with the pros, which was a good matchup, made for some good racing. But Imola being in the dry, it was definitely a very grippy machine. However, any slight bump or undulation, catch a curb wrong, and it can result in a meeting with the gravel, or even worse, with the barrier. So again, something you want to avoid in these wet conditions, but the Audi is very easy to tip over that edge if you've got a bad setup behind you.
Yeah, a good setup will be important, and Wolf Matuszka is one of the drivers on the grid who I think spends a lot more time than most do on setups. He has become a bit of an Audi expert, as he's known. Probably knows it better than most of the drivers do in ACC, and well, he's had so much success in the peak Audi as well. And look at how much curve he takes through the chicane as well. Full commitment from Wolf Matuszka on the very first lap as he comes out of the final corner. We'll have to see what is the first lap time that the 25 can throw down on the board. It will be valid. It is a 2-minute 0.9. That is faster than anything we saw out in the practice session earlier on. It was Harry Conway that topped the timing sheets in practice with a 2:01.7. Wolf Matuszka, he's almost put a whole second down on that time, but everyone else also improving as well. The likes of Schumann is just over half a second away from what Wolf Matuszka has managed. Jarkko Torvinen just about 0.6 away from that. So there is plenty of time left in a lot of these drivers.
Definitely, absolutely blistering time from Matuszka. But like you say, tyres getting up to temperature, getting in that window of operating, fuel dropping off slightly. I guarantee we will see some quicker times. Can Conway put it up there again? We shall soon see. Torvinen, I've noticed, has gone back to the pit lane after his first lap, so maybe his pressure's not quite right in that Lambo. Wants to give it another stab on the correct pressures. Again, time's ticking down. Once you've done your out lap and your flying lap, got to be a clean one. Bank it.
Definitely does need to be a clean one, and Harry Conway has a lap on the board that's put him into 5th place. Martin Lawrence, who we were looking at just a moment ago, I believe was up into 11th place, is kind of struggling in the Audi at the moment, but this is Marek Vons in the 777. And Marek Vons has been one of the drivers consistently challenging Wolf Matuszka in the 2 races he's appeared in so far this season, both at Imola and the likes of Monza. Managed to get that gap between himself and Wolf down to just a few seconds when we got to the end of the race. And he'll be incredibly frustrated that on 2 different occasions he's come so close to besting Wolf Matuszka and just hasn't quite been able to do it yet. So, 3rd time's the charm, as they say, and he'll be out here at the Nurburgring hoping that he can put one over Wolf Matuszka this time by. Wolf will not improve on his 2nd lap. He invalidated it. The likes of Marek Vons, though, they will improve on their 2nd lap. They're up by almost half a second. They cross the line. They throw themselves onto the front row of the grid. And that's exactly where they'll want to be. They'll want to be on pole, but if not, they'll want to be right alongside Wolf Matuszka going down into turn 1. This is Rudy Filmalter, South African, that we have here tonight. He's down in 16th place at the moment. Rudy was unfortunately caught up in a bit of the shenanigans that went on at turn 1 at Monza last week, so didn't have a great race, and looking for a bit of a comeback fight here at the Nurburgring.
Rudy, a very quick driver, with him in a few other leagues. Really has some good pace in him. Let's see where he goes on the timing board. Don't think he improved that lap. He's still down in P17. So again, has he invalidated it? Really got to keep it clean if he wants to get up that order.
I think he did improve his lap time, but I don't think he improved it enough to improve upon his position. So he stayed where he is for the moment. Wolf Matuszka is up on their lap time, by the way, as we look at Benjamin Schumann right now. Just within half a second of what Wolf Matuszka has been able to do so far in this qualifying session. Coming out of the dipper at the bottom of the circuit right now, Wolf has found an incredible amount of time. I think found about a second on this lap alone, so we'll have to see what Wolf Matuszka can pull out of the bag. He has been known for topping the qualifying sessions in the Monday Championship as of late. He's been known to dominate the Monday Championships as of late as well. He's looking to make it, I believe it is 4 Monday Championship wins in a row. But he has had competition this season from the likes of Marek Vons, Jarkko Torvinen and Harry Conway. But if you can keep racking up those bonus points from pole position and fastest lap, they will go a long way to securing that. Well, Wolf will come out of the final corner. What's he going to improve up to at this point? Going to improve any? Yes, he will. He'll improve by about 1/10 of a second. The Benjamin Schumann coming through the final corner now as well, and he's lost time going into the final corner. Won't gain it coming out either, so Benjamin Schumann will not improve on their lap time. But I think there are plenty of other drivers around improving. The likes of Nico Kuizma is up by 4/10 of a second and goes up into 8th place. Here is Jake Boswell, the former Monday broadcaster here at RCI, getting involved in some racing as well. And they're going to come out of the final corner down in 16th at the moment, not where Jake Boswell wants to be. Will come across the line and will improve, but will unfortunately not go any further up the order. We have a minute and 10 left to go. Time to get those clutch lap times out.
Definitely getting very competitive. You know, like you say, a minute to go. One tire too far over a white line onto an extra bit of curb that you shouldn't be on. It could spell the end of your lap. No time to go again. But again, looking down the order, I'm seeing a few greens, so who knows what is to come.
Have plenty of drivers finding time, but it's about finding time all across the circuit and then keeping it as well. Billy Octane, who has done very well in some of the qualifying sessions so far this season, finds himself outside the top 10. He's down in 11th at this point. Here is Marek Vonslow, who we will go on board with now as he comes into the final sector. And Marek Vons just getting a bit squirrely there coming out of the corner, and it's important to not plant the foot as you come out of the corner through some of these, especially on the greasy track. And the track is drying up, actually. You can see it on the weather forecast. The rain is getting lighter and lighter as we go along, and I don't think it will be enough for anyone on a final lap out here in qualifying. But here is Marek Vons, so committed through the final chicane. I don't think they're going to improve enough, though, to take that provisional pole away from Wolf Matuszka. What they're going to be thinking of is that they want to prevent anyone else from taking that front row start off. Oh, and well, I think they lost time coming out of the final corner there, John, and rather frustratingly put that into the wall as a sign of displeasure as to how they probably threw away, what, like about 0.5 of a second. And it can be so frustrating when you get the rest of that right, you get the last corner wrong, and you throw it all away. And well, it's going to hurt even more if the likes of Jarkko Torvinen come up here in a minute and beat that lap time that's got Marek Vons in second place.
I think Torvinen is looking very quick coming into the last corner, but as you said, can he hold it together? It does look like he's lost a little bit. Going to gain it, gaining a little bit on exit, but will it be enough to take away any other position? Torvinen comes across the line in 4th, no improvement on his last lap. However, like you say, it can be tricky to stitch together a lap. Here we watch Andy Boardman coming around. He is green in the Delta. Can he improve his position at all? Boardman jumps up to 6th place overall. Big jump for Andy Boardman, the Brit. Good to see a Brit up the top end of the field.
Yeah, Andy Boardman improving big time on his final lap as one of the BMWs, I believe that's the 108, finds itself not having a great end to the lap. That was Will Steffenson, in fact, and he will finish no higher than 12th in the qualifying session. Here is Ethan Scott, who is the final car out in the session. Will come up towards the line, currently sit 14th, and they will remain 14th place. So there we go then. Wolf Matuszka takes another pole position this season by 0.4 of a second over the likes of Marek Vons in the GT3 class. And then down in GT4, it is Martin Ulrich and Juraj Fencek that line up on the front row of the grid. And rather nice to see there. Across both classes on the front row, we do not have a repeated manufacturer. Audi and BMW on the front row for GT3, and Mercedes and Porsche on the front row for GT.
It's definitely great to see a bit of variety finally coming into the field. Remember when the BMW M4 got released to us? It was a bit of an M4 Cup at the front of the field. But yeah, definitely good to see an Audi can still compete with the likes of them. And yeah, it's going to be a very interesting race, I believe.
Definitely is going to be an interesting hour of racing ahead of us, but before that, we'll have a little bit of a look over the championship standing. So Wolf Matuszka with his 2 race wins so far this season, and I believe his 4th place finish out at Paul Ricard. That has him sitting at the top of the table, 196 points. Of course, he's got some bonus points for fastest lap and pole position as well. Jarkko Torvinen sits on 164 in second place, and then Harry Conway, other winner that we've had so far this season, just 3 points behind Torvinen. Marek Vons, who unfortunately had to miss a race, he missed the second round at Paul Ricard. If he had that round, would probably be right in the mix of the top 3. But he's on 116 points, just 10 ahead of Billy Octane. John Aracer will start from the back of the grid on 101 points, and then Jake Boswell in 7th place with 91. He's 5 points ahead of Andy Boardman in 8th place. Benjamin Schumann is in 9th on 80 points. And rounding out the top 10 is the Belgian Thibaut Roskam in Audi, 70 points. After missing round 1, William Stephenson has 75. He's done very well in the 2 rounds that have followed to build himself up to 11th place. 67 points for Nico Kumpu, and look how close it is here. 65 points for Savaseri, 62 for Gegeli Gaspar, 1 for Rudy Filmolter, and then Martin Lawrence on 59. Very, very close between the likes of 12th and 16th place. Ethan Scott on 46 points, and then it's tied for 18th. Nico Kuzma and Andres Sarka both sitting on points. And Carlos Calatiad rounds out the top 20 in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo on 31, although he is unfortunately not present. And then in the remains of the GT3 class, Richard Whittle is the final point scorer that we have for the season. And Giame Mas, Daniel Chermak, Emilio Garcia, and Martin no longer racing for the season, so they're unfortunate. On to GT4, and it's Christopher Verstappen that leads the way with 101 points. Peter Hederberg with 146, and 2 points behind him is Bart Matcher as well in place. Mikael Sundström is tied on points with Martin Ulrich, 134 apiece for the Alpine and the Mercedes. Then a bit further back from them is Floris Hasselwold on 112. Nicholas Nordquist, who isn't here tonight, unfortunately, on 96 points. And then behind him, tied on points, Jordan Daly and Klaus Nearing on 92 apiece. Alandrino rounds out the top 10 on 90. And then the remains of the GT4 field. Andreas Vick Ostland on 88 points, and then a bit behind him is Matthew Kingston Lee and Juraj Svenček, 77 and 75 apiece. Jesper Eisenfors is on a nice 69 points, and then Eric Engman has 28 points as he sits as the final point scorer for the GT4 class. Cole Trickle, Phil Roberts, and Atabek Ertan are the drivers that have unfortunately signed out for the season, so we will not be seeing them any further on in championship. So it's a very sunny and nice-looking Nurburgring that we have here on the little bit of an overview that we have for the race, but unfortunately, not so much for the drivers out here on the track. And, well, not something we've had too much of an ability to show off last week, because there was only one car running a custom livery last week, but well, it seems that plenty of drivers have decided to field them out this week for the Monday Championship, and you have a great look there at the Brisk Baguettes, nearly on pace Alpine of Mikael Sundström as well, and a fantastic livery design done to that car. There are a few others out here on the grid that are running some custom liveries. Here's Connection Lost Racing, this is William Stephenson, who is running his custom livery, a very nice camo pattern there as well. You can see Billy Octane's Triple R BMW M4, Harry Conway's Lamborghini there with the Triple R cyan and pink gradient on that car, one of the race winning cars so far this season. Then at the front of the grid, no custom liveries right on the front row though, it is just in-game customs for the likes of the Pink Performance team and the Connection Lost Racing of Bonds. But here we go then, just as Wolf Mazushka gets ready to lead us away for the start of the formation lap. John, you're new around here, but I have to do it to you. I have to ask you the all-important question we always ask all of the commentators every time we suit up for a race here. Who do you think is going to come home with the win tonight?
Tricky one to call, I would say. Some really big names at the front. I mean, Machuska being an Audi maestro in his own right, definitely has got my money, I believe, on him. But again, knowing the Audi's performance and how it can snap on you and send you off, it could be anyone's for the taking. I mean, even Torvinen, Conway got some good pace out of the Lambo in practice, so who knows, could that be a dark horse in the field, or could it be some strong BMWs up there? I literally can't call this one.
It is going to be hard to call because we haven't really seen much wet racing out this season so far. In fact, in most of the other championships that we've had going on, we haven't had much racing in the wet either. And we know that qualifying pace and race pace are two very different things. We saw in the practice session earlier, Harry Conway topped the timing table in what we thought was the likes of qualifying lap times, but maybe it wasn't, because this qualifying lap time, or those lap times from practice, were shattered immediately coming into qualifying for the GT3. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of that shapes up. Jarkko Torvinen took the lead on the very first lap at Monza, but then gave it away with a mistake into turn 1, which gave Wolf Matuszka the lead of the race back. Marek Vons will be aware of what happened in that Monza race. He almost came home with the win. And he knows if he's starting alongside the likes of Wolf Matuszka, he has every chance of beating him down into turn 1, but he needs to get the launch right. And the benefit that he has here tonight is that he has a rear gunner right behind him. Martin Lawrence in the Audi will be looking to run his own race tonight, but of course they are in the same team. They will be looking out for each other if they can help each other. Martin Lawrence's first goal tonight is going to be preventing that Lamborghini from getting ahead of him into turn 1. But Jarkko Torvinen is so committed when it comes to the first lap, and when it comes to the entire race, really. He is going to try something down into turn 1 if he's given the opportunity.
Sure. If Torvinen has a gap and he sees it, he will be going for it. So, like you say, can Larenk clear that space between the BMW and himself to not allow Torvinen to get in there? But if they work together and work sensibly, again, they could progress onto the back of Wolf, and then Wolf could be coming under fire from 2 different cars on 2 different sides.
Could very well be coming under fire from 2 different sides, and the cars start to line up 2 by 2 as far as you can see. And well, here we go then. It is time to find out. We have an hour of racing ahead of us. There is 1 mandatory pit stop for all of these drivers here tonight. The only requirement is that they take 1 litre of fuel. I imagine out here in the wet, no one will be needing to fuel save with the conditions that we have, so it'll be interesting to see. Half an hour's time, the rain is scheduled to get lighter. We'll have to see how all of that affects the grid here tonight and their strategy. But here we go then. 25 and 777 on the front row of the grid. It is Wolf Matuszka and Marek Vons. It is the 2 that came together at turn 1 at Monza on the final lap 1 week ago. Will they come together down at turn 1? Well, Marek Vons immediately cutting over to the side to try and cut off the look from his teammate Martin Lawrence, but Martin Lawrence not going to have a look, or is he going to have a look on the inside? Wolf Matuszka seems to have got away nice and clean, but it looks like Martin Lawrence may be trying to take that position away in second place from the likes of Marek Vons, but he will have to concede on the outside line, and this is benefiting Wolf Matuszka. Everyone fighting and jostling for position behind, and here comes Jarkko Torvinen as well. He's looking for that move up to third place. He'll be on the outside line coming through here, and I believe it's that Schumann as well looking to get a move done on the likes of Jarkko Torvinen. I think maybe has he got it done? No, he hasn't. He has to slip in right behind, but so far, knock on wood, John, it has been a nice clean start.
Has been. I've looked down the field. I think I've noticed Andy Boardman possibly getting some contact into turn 2, or in the middle of turn 2. Saw him spin into the inside there. Drop back to P20, right in the middle of the GT4 field there. So nice and clean start, like you say, into turn 2. Suddenly there's a Lamborghini up his inside. Let's see how the stewards will take that one.
Yeah, Harry Conway just clipping the likes of Andy Boardman on that occasion, and we'll have to see what the live stewarding team think of that one. They'll have to have a little bit of a look into it. They are usually quite harsh on the first lap of a race, so we'll have to see how all of that pans out. But maybe considering the conditions, they will have to take into the account if Harry Conway is entirely responsible for that. But we'll leave the stewarding down to the stewards, and we'll continue to watch what's going on here as Benjamin Schumann looks to chase down the likes of Jarkko Torvinen at this point in time. Marek Vons had to defend from his teammate, and oh, that's John Aracer, who started right at the back of the field. Oh, and getting involved with Mikhail Sundström. Getting involved with Mikhail Sundström, Klaus Neering, and Peter Henneberg, and that is the problem you have sometimes as a GT3 who starts right at the back of the field, having to work your way through the GT4 cars. Sometimes mistakes happen, and that looks like it's going to be curtains for John Aracer's day. Won't even get a lap on the board for the 699.
Very unfortunate, but like we said at the beginning, starting that far down the grid, you do risk, tangling with the slower class. with such a big speed difference, especially in the wet, as you said earlier, Ryan, in qualifying. GT4s just don't have the downforce to accommodate for the extra bit of grip that you do need. But here we're looking at Harry Conway. I believe he has jumped Mr. Schumann into the first complex somewhere along the way. BMW's looking a bit squirrely behind. But yeah, this could be the comeback for Harry, but it would be a shame if that penalty did rear its head. Contact on Andy Boardman on lap 1.
Yeah, well, Harry Conway is just driving onwards. He isn't going to worry about that at this moment in time. He's just going to live with whatever the consequences of that incident are. So Harry Conway has the fastest lap of the race, apparently, according to the first racing lap. We'll have to see how all of that possibly changes, but Wolf Matuszka and Marek Von separated by half a second up at the front of the field. Here is the GT4 class. And with that little bit of an incident that happened through the mid-pack of GT4, and we've got a GT3 off, that's William Stevenson, the 108. Now, what has happened? The 108, we haven't actually caught that. He's gone off track. Being told there was no contact between any car and himself, so I'm not entirely sure what's happened with the 108. They have towed back to the garage, and that could be an early end to the 108's day, John. That is not an ideal start to the race, as Andy Boardman, who was tagged by Harry Conway early on in the race, is now looking to fight his way back through the field, and first on his agenda is the likes of Jake Boswell, who had to take that chicane at a suboptimal angle because of the challenge from Andy Boardman. That's left him vulnerable into the final corner, and the number 69 gets a very nice move on the inside of Jake Boswell after the final corner.
Definitely seeing Boswell getting past like that, I'm not used to it. Boswell is quite normally a defensive driver whenever I've come up beside him. So yeah, Andy is on a real charge to try and come back. Looked very strong in qualifying, so yeah.
I've just seen Harry Conway muscle his way through on Jarkko Torvinen. We're going to get a replay here courtesy of our broadcaster, and here we are, Harry Conway on the inside. Nice and strong move on the likes of Jarkko Torvinen there. Jarkko Torvinen's not opposed to a bit of side-to-side contact, door-to-door racing, so I'm sure he won't mind that too much. But Harry Conway, very, very aggressive on his overtaking, and I wonder, John, if that's a sign that he possibly thinks he's going to get a penalty, so he's getting a move on as quick as he can, try and make up as much time as he can early on. Meanwhile, fighting for the final podium place at the moment in GT4, it is a hat-trick of Porsches at the moment.
So Porsche's looking very strong in qualifying, but yeah, again, they all kind of trained together. Ladies out front, but this battle here is definitely looking quite good.
We're hearing from Will Stevenson that it was apparently a screen freeze that he suffered, so that's why he unfortunately had to take off to the gravel and didn't move, towed back to the pit lane. So that's really, really unfortunate to hear from the 108, and not something you ever want to encounter. As we look back from Hasselwold's car at the moment, Svenček and Calandrino just going toe-to-toe at the moment, and Hasselwold want them to keep doing that, because the more they go toe-to-toe with each other, the more it just allows him to pull away and solidify that third place. Calandrino, we've seen, has plenty of pace in them from the race that they had at Monza. They looked very, very good in the qualifying session, and they were very, very good at Imola as well. So much pace in that car. Harry Conway, by the way, still has the fastest lap of the race, and that tells me a lot here, John, because Harry Conway, not only did he get past Jarkko Torvinen, in very aggressive style, he's also kept that fastest lap of the race, despite Wolf Matuszka having that clean air. Harry Conway, he's on a mission here tonight, and if he can keep up, these fast laps that he's doing at the moment, who's to say he can't be in with a chance for a second win of the season?
Bit of elbows out we're watching here between the two teammates of Vons and Lorenk. Definitely not something you want to do, committing some friendly fire on your fellow teammate. It's only going to hamper both of you, and obviously while all this happens, Wolf is slowly pulling away lap by lap.
Yeah, they were fairly close together just a lap ago, but it seems that battling between teammates there has definitely caused them to split up a bit. Harry Conway won't mind that too much, though, because that just means he's even closer to the back of Martin Lawrence right now, and going to just work his way up at this point. Martin Lawrence and Harry Conway, they know each other very, very well, and they won't mind having a good battle with each other as well. I do wonder if Marek Vons and Martin Lawrence, and Bart Matcher for that fact as well, are all in the same Discord call or voice communication call as the likes of Will Stevenson. Of course, they all drive for CLR, so would make sense if they were all in the same voice chat together. But I always find that interesting, John. I mean, I'm not sure if you've been in that situation often where you're battling teammates, you're in the same voice call as each other, and you know things maybe get a bit heated in there when you're all trying to battle for position, as we see Mikael Sundström making a very interesting move on the inside of one of the Porsches down towards the back of the GT.
Definitely seemed like a bit of a late lunch on the Sundström there. Maybe got caught out by the Porsche early braking, possibly just saw a gap and sent it. But yeah, being in the same call as your teammates, it's always a good laugh. I mean, depends what you're racing for. If you're racing for honours, maybe like these guys are, might be getting a bit heated. If you're racing for fun, like most of me and my teammates do, then it's all in good jest normally.
Good to hear as Andy Boardman looks to make his way further up the field. Next on his list is Ethan Scott in the 34, the lone Mercedes GT3 that we have on the field here as well. And here comes Andy Boardman. Oh, just getting out of shape. Yeah, getting very out of shape. Oh, we've got
a spinner, I believe.
That's Andros Sarka in the Infinity Skills 818. And
has he had a helping hand, or has he caught it on the curb?
Like on his own.
Yeah, caught it on the wet AstroTurf there. An absolute slippy part of the track you do not want to be on, especially if you've wound down your traction control a little just to get a better drive off the corners. You hit that wet AstroTurf and it's just going to absolutely spin you out.
Unfortunately for the likes of Andros Sarka, that's dropped him out of the top 10 and now into the clutches of Jake Boswell, who's in 15th place. So Andros Sarka has a lot of work left to do, and Jake Boswell having to take a bit of avoiding action there. Looked like he almost ran into the back of the 818. That's caused him to go wide into the hairpin, and he's lost the place out. And well, here is the big news. That lap 1 contact between Harry Conway and the likes of Andy Boardman. The stewards have decided that contact on lap 1 from Harry Conway, he is the guilty party. No position returned. It is a drive-through penalty for the 29, and Harry Conway will be very, very frustrated with that, because now it is going to be a very difficult fight back for him in this race.
Definitely so. Just looking on the replay here on the onboard, the Boardman runs a little bit wide. Conway thinks he sees a window. Boardman maybe a little bit out of shape, comes across the front of Conway, and yeah, just pushes him out. But Conway is taking that drive through now. Going to see him drop down the order. Let's see how many positions he does lose in total. Although I believe he stopped in the pit lane there.
I think he has stopped in the pit lane. I'm not entirely sure, but see if we can get confirmation on that in a bit. In the meantime, Billy Octane, his teammate in the RRR BMW M4 GT3, is up into 8th place, and he'll be looking to capitalise on the likes of Gegely Gaspar at the moment. Just 0.4 of a second between two of them, and Billy Octane has had some very good drives so far this season. He's competing for a top 5 in the championship at the moment, and well, an 8th place is not exactly what he would want at this point in time, but it's not too bad considering the circumstances as well. And get up into that 7th place, he's too far behind the likes of Nico Kumpu either.
Just hearing there from race control that Conway has retired the car, possibly thinking maybe a drive-through is you know, something you can't come back from. Again, in these conditions, anything is possible. I think it would have been worth sticking it out, especially with the pace that you had shown in qualifying.
Confirmation, by the way, Harry Conway has retired from the race, unfortunately. So that drive through, Harry Conway has decided not worth continuing onwards. Can't get a good enough result, apparently. So Harry Conway has decided that that is the end of the day. Wolf Matuszka, by the way, has gone and set the fastest lap of the race, and he is 1.2 seconds ahead of the likes of Marek Vons at this time, and Martin Lawrence is 1.3 seconds back as well from there. So they're starting to split themselves out, by the way, and looking here at the moment, the closest battle I can see within the top 10 seems to be Nico Kumpu and Schumann at the moment for 5th place, and Billy Octane and Gegely Gaspar for 7th. Looking down into the GT4 field, there's plenty going on at the moment as Mikael Sundström looks to find his way past likes of Andreas Vikosland, and he can see Bart Matcher just up the road as well in the Audi GT4. Bart Matcher being one of the winners we've had so far in GT4. Won in fantastic style after taking pole position at Paul Ricard.
Watching Sundström see if he can maximise the corner exit here. Chasing down to the chicane on the Porsche. Does look like he's gaining ever so slightly. Too wide through the chicane can be very awkward as Sundström goes to the outside. But the Porsche on the inside here. Who will be the last of the late breakers? Sundström lunging it round the outside and clearing the Porsche way before the chicane even happened.
Penalty coming through, by the way, for the 703. That's Jarkko Torvinen. And looking down through the list that I have right now that Conor Morgan has provided to me, 703 involved with the 703, involved with the 222. 5-second penalty makes minor contact, resulting in a loss of multiple positions for the 222. So that was Benjamin Schumann. So I wonder if when Harry Conway got past the likes of Schumann, if that was a result of some of the contact between 703 and the 222. So Jarkko Torvinen's got a 5-second penalty for that. He's got a 2-second gap already over the likes of Benjamin Schumann, so he'll be looking to build on that throughout the race.
They're watching a replay here, I believe, of the 5 seconds, which has caused Torvinen possibly shut the door on Schumann, saw him coming, tried to make a late defence, but it was just too late.
Having another look here.
This is possibly
we have
part
another
2 of the
replay.
incident.
Like it, I think.
Ooh.
Flips the back of him.
Ever so slight touch there, but just enough to unsettle the M4 and obviously driving wide, allowing Conway through.
Yeah, so that's the multiple positions lost then. It was the one on Jarkko Torvinen and then Harry Conway. So I was right in the hypothesis that that's how Harry Conway got past Benjamin Schumann. And, 5-second penalty for Jarkko Torvinen to serve at his mandatory pit stop. Meanwhile, Billy Octane will continue onwards with his race and chasing down Gegli Gaspar as well. He's had a few scraps with Gegli Gaspar already this season, so he won't be unfamiliar with how to get past the likes of the 81. And you can look at the weather forecast as well, still within half an hour that we're expecting the rain to lessen slightly. We don't know if it's going to dry up completely, but I'd hazard a guess that it probably won't dry up completely within this race. It'll probably take a while for the circuit to dry up, considering the lack of sunlight that we have around here at the moment. Clouds covering the entire circuit, as you can see, looking up towards the sky. Some big grey clouds still in and about the area, but it's nowhere near as wet as I think we probably expected coming into this race, John.
Certainly. I mean, looking at qualifying, it was definitely going to be a wet race regardless, but how wet that was going to be, it just seems to be a little bit of light rain and damp at the moment. But like you said, it depends how quickly this track dries up. You're going to probably want to go as long as you can on your opening set of tyres in order to give you a better picture of what will happen in the later half of the race.
Christopher Verstappen just getting a bit out of shape, coming out of turn 4. Like Martin Ulrich at this point closing in and trying to get one over on Christopher Verstappen. Verstappen won out last time at Monza. Had a very, very good race indeed, and it looked like Battle of the Mercs will continue up at the Nurburgring as well, and Verstappen just edging over Martin Ulrich at the moment, but the race could go on for plenty longer between these two. And Loris Harsford's found himself in a bit of a bubble at the moment, 2.3 seconds behind Ulrich and 2.2 seconds ahead of Spencer. Meanwhile, Andy Boardman, working his way back up from the incident that he was involved in earlier, and he's up into 9th place. Billy Octane is into the pit lane to serve his mandatory pit stop. He is the first driver to serve his mandatory pit stop, and he will get that done nice and early, and I can only assume that he's done that pit stop early to jump the likes of Gegli Gaspar later on in the race. Billy Octane wants some clean air so he can set down some hot laps in these damp conditions, and then when Giggly Gaspar comes into the pit lane, Billy Octane will already be down the road, and we'll have to see how that strategy works out. The problem is, can't afford to get caught up in the GT4 cars. If he does decide to pit and he hasn't got caught up with them, he's got plenty gap to them behind. So Billy Octane has chosen the right time to come into the pits and make sure he doesn't get hindered.
A bit worried if he's jumped too early, possibly if it dries out, maybe quickly, could be caught out on the end on tyres that aren't suboptimal for the conditions. Then do you want to risk a 30-second tyre change when all you've really got to do is add a little bit of fuel?
Gamble that you have to take sometimes, I suppose, when you think you're stuck in traffic and you can't get past someone at that stage in the race. Wolf Matushka continues on in the lead, by the way, 2.7 seconds up the road from Marek Vons, and we're looking at the battle here between Boardman and Kuizma. So this is for 8th place on track as it stands, and Calandrino now coming down to put the pressure on Juraj Fencek. Porsche versus Porsche. 4th place in the GT4 class at the moment, and you can Jordan Daly just a bit behind there. The Triple R Mercedes GT4, he's sitting in 6th place at the moment. He would really like to be in and amongst that battle right now, but he knows these two keep battling each other and he can keep cutting down those lap times. He can eventually catch up to the back and get involved, and Andy Boardman getting involved in an overtake at turn 1, and very nicely done from the number 69, who gets the move nice and clean into turn 1 past Nico Kuizma and up into 8th overall. It's been a very, very good recovery for Andy Boardman in the first 20 minutes.
Certainly, turn 1, 2 incidents aren't the kind of thing you want to see. You've been an hour long, anything can happen, and at the start that's not ideal. But Boardman on a real big comeback here as we look towards the GT4 field. Again, these Mercedes locked bumper to bumper. Not one of them is given an inch, but again, let's see. Can Ulrich make the most of the slipstream going into the chicane? Thinks about it, he tucks back in, try and maximise his line. Reppin there jumping the curbs. Ulrich a much cleaner line, one of those flatter curbs, not taking so much of it. Again, looking like a tighter line around the last turn, trying to maximise his run onto the straightaway. Can he maybe take a lunge at Verstappen into turn 1? Find out.
We'll have to see. Will Martin Ulrich go for that dive, or will he think of caution on the better part of Valor? He's going to have a look. He's going to look on the outside of Christopher Verstappen. That will turn into the inside line for the next corner, but goes way too deep and will not have the chance to look at that inside line. So Christopher Verstappen fine on this time around, but he'll have to be careful because you can usually send it around the inside or outside of turns 3 and 4, but we'll have to see if Martin Ulrich decides to do so. No, sticking in line with Verstappen. So he will continue as he is, but Christopher Verstappen will be very, very aware that Martin Ulrich has looked at that move. He got close enough to try it, just got it wrong on this occasion. But if he gets into that situation again on this lap or the next lap, might make it stick next time around.
Definitely see Ulrich sizing up Verstappen on the lap, seeing maybe where he's going to be weakest, maybe where he can gain it. He might be able to channel that one corner or that one exit, then turn into a pass. But you can see these guys are not letting up. They are going to be locked like this the whole race, I feel.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be very, very close between the two Mercedes at the front in the GT4 field. As it stands, nothing doing between the two of them at the moment. A bit further back, looking at Mikael Sundström, who was involved in the accident on the very first lap between John Aracer, Peter Henneberg and Klaus Neering. He's actually worked himself up into 7th place in GT4, so not too bad. I think it was the likes of Klaus Neering and Peter Henneberg that both retired from the race due to that incident, so he lost 2 of the GT4s very early on with that contact with John Aracer. So we have some very, very early retirements here. And in fact, I've just seen that Jake Boswell is well down the order at this point. Not entirely sure what's happened to the 47 at this point.
I've just noticed that myself.
He's gone. Richard Whittle as well is all the way down in 24th overall. So they're behind the GT4 cars. So something has happened to both of these cars. Neither of them have their mandatory pit stop done yet either, which is also one of the things that has concerned me, because surely if they pitted for repairs, then they would have got that pit stop out of the way, you'd assume. But apparently, that is not the case. So we'll have to see if we can find out what happened between, maybe not between, but to the 957 and the 47, because that seems to have just eluded us for a moment there, John.
Definitely peculiar. Looking down race controls accident list, lap 2 apparently something might have happened between them. But again, that was quite a while ago. We are up to lap 11 now, so can't imagine that's been the incident that's pushed them all the way down. We're seeing a replay here. This is possibly it. Boswell looking to
This
the
looks
outside.
like it's at the start of the race.
Yeah.
Lap 2 by the looks of it. So there was nothing really there. We're being told by our broadcaster that is the only thing that the school has reported to us. Our broadcaster to us regarding those two cars. So I can only assume then, John, that self-inflicted incidents they've done to each other, but obviously not enough to cause them to come into the pit lane and repair any damage, if there has been any damage at all to either car.
It's definitely peculiar to lose that amount of time in such a short space without any report at all coming up. It's definitely very peculiar. Normally, if one car spins, it's normally maybe 5, 10, 15 seconds at a push lost. But yeah, not talking laps and so many positions at once.
So being told that both of them had a server disconnect, and that is why they have dropped so far down the order. So that explains why both of them have dropped behind the GT4 cars, and why they also haven't got those mandatory pit stops done. So disconnects for the 957 and the 47, and that is very, very unfortunate. Never what you want to see for any of the drivers on the field. And but good on to both of them for coming back and getting back in the car and just saying, look, let's go, let's see what points we can pick up in this race, and we'll go on to the next one.
Definitely kudos to them. As we look at Wolf here, I believe his last time by was another fast lap of the race, so he is finding pace everywhere at the moment, and I believe also passed some traffic in that previous lap. So it's going to be interesting seeing them getting into the traffic stages. GT4's fighting their own fight, not quite watching their mirrors properly. Will they see Wolf creeping up in his bright pink Audi? I'd like to think they would.
We've seen at the likes of Imola and Monza as well, where Wolf had a couple of seconds advantage over the cars behind, and that all disappeared when he found the traffic. And sometimes it's easy to get past them, sometimes it isn't. It purely depends on where you catch the traffic. Wolf Matuszka has been one of the better cars for traffic navigation, though, throughout the course of the season. And Jordan Daly going very, very deep into the hairpin. You almost wonder if that was intentional. He saw Wolf coming and maybe decided to go a bit deep to just allow him through there, not wanting him to follow him up towards the Schumacher S's. So Jordan Daly is the first car that Wolf Matuszka dispatches out of his way. Got more GT4 cars to clear up the road. He's got the battling, I was going to say the battling Porsches, but they're not really battling at the moment because Calandrino has gone into the pit lane. So we've got Svenček, Harsford, and then the two Mercedes up front for Wolf Matuszka to clear, yeah.
I noticed Sundstrom down the bottom of the field there, P22, has taken his mandatory stop. So again, another early pitter, kind of halfway through the race. Again, is he going to get caught out on a greasy track on the wrong tyres? We've got a replay coming up here of Wolf versus the Porsche. It's getting very close. It's not something you want to play this point through the race. Definitely not.
I think he left just enough room for a Porsche Cayman GT4.
I think it's lucky the Porsche doesn't have any canards on the front bumper, because I think that would certainly be contact there.
Very lucky it wasn't any wider. And, well, here is Jarkko Torvinen, who is hounding down on Martin Lawrence for a podium position. Torvinen still with that 5-second penalty. As it stands, he would still be behind Schumann if the race ended as it was, and that time was added onto his total race time come the end. And the task for Jarkko Torvinen now is to not just get past the likes of Martin Lawrence, but then go 5 seconds up the road from him as well. hasn't found a way past the 171 within the first 28 or so minutes of the race. Have to use the next 32. See if he can find a way past the 171, but Martin Lawrence using the traffic to his advantage there, and Jordan Daly, unfortunately, just holding up the likes of Jarkko Torvinen. But Jarkko Torvinen's been around here before in multi-class racing. He knows the score. He won't be complaining too much, because he knows full well that it can ebb and flow, and it always changes and evens itself out.
Certainly so. You may win some, you may lose some, but again, your opponent is going to have the exact same conditions as you later on down the line. So, like you say, Torvinen just has to pull out that gap on Schumann. Maybe Schumann has a bad stop, who knows? I've not seen these guys through the pit lane before, so again, all to play for at the moment. If I was Schumann, I'd be keeping it very clean. I'd be focused on trying to catch Torvinen, but maybe not overdrive the car, just because you know you've got that 5-second buffer already. So it's, in a sense, a free position.
Yeah, there is that gamble that you might have to risk. And looking back from Eric Engman at this point, we can see Andreas Vikosland. We can also see the likes of Andras Sarka just in the background for the Infinity Skills BMW M4 GT3 going past at the moment. And this is one of the parts of the track where you would want a GT3 car to catch you, because it's nice and easy to let them through. Stick to your line, and there we go. The Burger King Alpine slots in behind BMW GT3. Meanwhile, this is Rich Whittle, who has found himself right on the back of the GT4 field. Bart Matcher, who is the last car in GT4, and then just a bit further in front of him is Mikael Sundström, who, like I said earlier, has got that mandatory pit stop done and out of the way. So, working his way through at the moment, but of course he's lapping them, or not really lapping them, he's overtaking them for position right now in overall. Not that he would get any points for that, but just to show you how unfortunate it was for Rich Whittle that he has to actually battle on track for position with some of the GT4. Not that I think the GT4s really give him that much trouble.
They've been in that slower class before, especially in endurance. Seeing a faster car coming behind you that you see as for position, there is literally no point fighting it. They will get you eventually. You might as well just make it as easy as you can for them, just to clear out the way, minimise your time loss, and yeah, just get on with your race. Again, Mr. Daly giving way to more GT3s at the bottom of the hill. Andy Boardman on an absolute charge, trying to catch the back of Gasper here.
He is definitely on a charge as well, and looking for that 7th place at the moment. Andy Boardman, who had a very, very good qualifying, unfortunately just that accident on the very first lap demoted him quite a few positions, but he battled back hard. And at this point, the fact that he hasn't done his mandatory pit stop and he's this high up is probably what's quite impressive, because it means that once he does eventually get that mandatory pit stop done and out of the way, his position in the race isn't really going to change much. So this is reflective of where he is in the field right now. We don't know where Billy Octane is in the field right now because of his early pit stop. Just know that he was behind Gegely Gaspar and he pitted to jump ahead of him on strategy. So Andy Boardman here, if he can get past Gegely Gaspar, then Billy Octane will be the car that he will be aiming to come out ahead of at this moment in time. We don't know exactly when all the other drivers will come in to do their pit stops. They usually like to leave it as late as they possibly can, and judging by the weather forecast, with the weather, it's going to get a bit lighter, but not light enough to the point where it'll stop. I think a lot of these guys are just going to go right up to the edge of that pit.
Personally, if it was me, I would be right on the limit of that pit window, just trying to gauge the conditions, see if it's going to dry up, if the temperature's going to go up. But again, not much wind here at the Nurburgring today, a very cold temperature, like I say, a lot of cloud cover, and I don't think this track will be drying out much, so I think it's just going to be fuel and maybe stay on the same set of tyres.
Looks like the strategy today might be set in stone for a lot of drivers out there as Gegely Gaspar continues on their way. Have a bit of a gap now to Andy Boardman, just gone up to about 0.8 of a second there. There's some breathing room for the 81.
It's always awkward following another car in their dirty air, especially through the Schumacher S's. sudden loss of aero isn't good. Can mean, dropping back 2, 3, 4 tenths of a second at a time, and then closing that gap again and falling perhaps to the same thing. But speaking of gaps, we are looking here at the battle between the Porsches. A nice big Porsche train here. For GT4, it's looking close for Hasselhoff. He can fend off the 107. Again, it's very tricky conditions here. Terrible corner exit can possibly mean your opponent gets past. Two very different lines here. The 107 hugging that tight line. And then we see the 22 going wide to get the slingshot up the hill towards the Schumacher S's.
And the big news coming out of GT4 is that is Hasselhoff defending from Svenček, but Calandrino, who pitted earlier on to see if he could jump ahead of them on strategy, he has managed to do so. He is further up the road, and as it stands at the moment, he would be in third place once the likes of Christopher Verstappen and all the rest come into the pit lane and do their mandatory pit stop. So Calandrino, he went for that strategy that Billy Octane went for, to get that pit stop out of the way early, and it has paid off for him. That clean air that he had to just go out and set some laps where he wasn't going to be hindered has meant that he has managed to jump Hasselhoff and Svenček as well. So he'll be very, very happy with how his strategy has worked out so far. He's on the podium provisionally, at least. Have to keep it up towards the end of the race, as Eric Engman is now in the pit lane in Alpine 909.
Certainly some interesting strategies coming out here. Again, seeing what one pays off. Could be the early pits, like you say, get the clean air, get the charge on, get the hammer down, get really focused, fill in those lap times, and yeah, you could possibly just make him free passes on the pit lane.
Those free passes are the ones that the drivers will take every day of the week. Obviously, they like the door-to-door battles, but oof, you get those free passes off as Juraj Svenček becomes well acquainted with the rear bumper of Floris Hasselhoff, and there goes one of the BMW M4 GT3s from the Triple R team. I believe that's Jake Boswell working his way through them, but yeah, Juraj Svenček just giving Floris Hasselhoff a little bit of a bump. Nothing too much going on. The stewards won't really look into that, and they'll leave it as it is. But maybe from Svenček, just a little bit of a bump to say, hey, I'm here, just so you know, just so you're aware.
Pretty sure Hasselhoff's going to spot that Cayman really wide in his mirrors at the moment. I mean, he is looking a bit out of shape in a few corners. That's Hasselhoff's not getting the turn in quite as well as Svenček is here. It could lead to leaving the door open, or possibly a very bad exit out of one of these turns. Seems Svenček is very good in this last sector, almost pushing Hasselhoff out of the way.
Svenček just closing back in now, and as he said, just trying to fill the mirrors at the moment of Hasselhoff. Porsche versus Porsche at the moment for a provisional fourth place in the GT4 class. Svenček not going to have a look towards the chicane. It looks quite obvious that with a lot of the moves we've seen here today, drivers preparing for a move into either the final corner or turn one seem to be very popular overtaking zones. As it stands, nothing doing for Svenček into the final corner, but now they're going to be looking to try and use whatever they can, get onto the back of Floris Hasselhoff, maybe have a look down into turn one. Not really catching in a straight line here. Svenček is going to be so much later on the brakes, but Hasselhoff them to the outside. Svenček has a little bit of a look to see if they can cut back onto the inside, but nothing doing there, and a very good defensive show at the moment for Floris Hasselhoff.
Definitely great to see these guys fighting. I mean, like for like cars, it is literally coming down to a hair split on this fight. Who can get the better exit, who can be later on the brakes, who can turn in tighter. But personally, if I was Svenček, I'd maybe think about trying to force the error, make the Cayman big as you can in his mirrors. Maybe even give him a little cheeky flash of the headlights.
Flash of the headlights, perhaps, and our broadcaster saying that Svenček at the moment just probably feeling like he's being held up so much he's having to tap on the brakes through corners that he's probably not expecting to. So unideal situation for Svenček, but Hasselhoff He's racing well within the limits of what is allowed, and no dodgy moves being done from either of these drivers, which is absolutely great to see, as we see Calandrino just a bit up ahead of them, trying to disappear off into the distance. But here's something that I have noticed. Svenček has a look. He's going to get alongside. Is he going to have the move done here on Floris Harsford into the corner? Yes, he will. He'll have it done. Harsford had a look to try and maybe retake it on the outside line, but not going to do so. And Juraj Svenček has got that move done. As I've noticed that between Martin Ulrich and Christopher Verstappen, they have swapped places. Martin Ulrich is now ahead of Christopher Verstappen by 3.2 seconds. So the 44 has jumped the 747 in the pit stop.
It's quite a big jump of time, like you say. 4 seconds on a pit stop, that is, a considerable loss somewhere. Possibly maybe too early on the pit entry, maybe missed his box, had to shuffle back. But again, Harsford has not given up this fight. He is looking to try and make a comeback on Svenček down into turn 1. See what direction they go. One will go inside, one will go outside. Svenček covering the inside. Last of the late breakers. Is he going to be able to do the switch back? Will he try and hold it? He's trying to hold the outside line. Then, like you say, becomes the inside into turn 2. He's just not alongside enough. Doesn't get a good enough exit. And Svenček shuts that door.
Svenček, the one having to pull out some of the defensive stops this time around. And now he'll hope that he can try and pull away up into the distance. Jordan Daly has inherited the lead of the GT4 class at the moment, but he still needs to do his mandatory pit stop, and so does Matthew Kingston-Lee, who is provisionally 4th at the moment. So in the GT4 class, it's only the likes of Jordan Daly, Matthew Kingston-Lee and Bart Matcher that still need to come in and do those mandatory pit stops. As for the GT4 class, top 10.
Indeed, I was about to say, the GT3 class, top 10 still yet to pit, although Gasper has come in, and obviously we were watching the Andy Boardman and Gasper fight, so can Boardman jump Gasper in the pits? He's got Billy Octane ahead of him. Both these guys have already pitted, as we go to a replay on board of Billy Octane, jumping over the curbs at the final chicane, possibly runs a little bit wide here. I'm not sure what we were watching, but definitely some commitment to the curbs there from Mr. Octane in the 33 as Gasper comes out behind Boardman. So Boardman really on a charge at the moment, trying to claw back all those positions. And again, still got a few cars ahead of him that are yet to pit.
So Billy Octane has jumped Gegally Gaspar, and by a significant margin as well in the pit stop. So that early stop for Billy Octane worked out a treat from being stuck behind the number 81. And he's got the number 69 right behind him now. So we have a little bit of a look of a race replay. Is this getting a bit out of shape? Being reported that Wolf lost a lot of time, but apparently the replay not going back far enough for us to catch that. And you can see how he lost a lot of time because Marek Vons is only 0.6 of a second behind him now. So Wolf Matuszka has, well, what was a significant gap, it was probably about a 4 to 5 second gap the last time I looked at it on paper, has now disappeared into about 0.7 of a second, and that will probably rekindle the flame slightly of Marek Vons and Martin Lawrence, who are now just within 1.5 seconds of Wolf Matuszka, and there's been contact. Andrea Pick-Osland, he's gone into the back of the Audi of Martin Lawrence down into turn 1. We didn't quite catch it from the camera angle we had there, but just cut off on the back. But Andrea Pick-Osland must have been so late on the brakes and not realised it. He went into the back of Martin Lawrence. That turned the Audi around. That is not what Martin Lawrence wanted. That has unfortunately caused him to concede the position to Jarkko Torvinen. Torvinen up into 3rd now. Provisionally at least, he still carries that 5-second penalty, but it is not an ideal situation for Martin Lawrence to be in. Oh, and Andy Boardman as well, outbraking himself massively and tapping the back of Billy Octane. He backs off completely to obviously not take the position. But it's getting a bit physical out there now as we come into the last 20 minutes, John.
it's certainly all kicking off now. I mean, drivers may be getting a bit kind of relaxed in their state of mind, maybe getting too used to the conditions. You know, the Porsche forgetting it might have had slipstream off those lead cars, and yeah, certainly caused a bit of havoc there for Lawrence in the Audi, which, like you say, has allowed Torvinen through. And you know that Audi's not going to be driving great with a big rear end damage like that. Again, it's going to be a costly pit stop if he takes it. It will allow probably Schumann through at least in the BMW as well.
Oh,
And
so this
Wolf's
is
made a mistake as well.
that
Possibly a
that
replay.
was what happened. Yep, this is the replay. This is what happened to Wolf. That's how he lost all that time to Marek Vons. Andreas Vick Ostland. I mean, Wolf Matuszka maybe he got caught on the grass. Maybe it was a bit optimistic to think that Andrea Vick Ostland was just going to give him the inside line there, but either way, that's how Wolf Matuszka lost all of that time, and that is what now has given Marek Vons 0.6 of a second between himself and Wolf Matuszka. This has definitely rekindled some sort of flame under the 777. He'll be disappointed not to see his teammate directly behind him anymore. But 16.5 minutes to go, it is game on. Both of these two still need to do their pit stops as well, and things can go wrong in the pit lane as we've seen before.
Certainly so. Overshoot your box. It could be a difference between a win and a P2. But no threat from behind from Vons. Torvinen with that 5 seconds still to serve. Puts him way out of contention for even challenging Vons at the moment.
Definitely does put him out of contention for the time being. 5-second penalty. The fortunate thing for Martin Lawrence is that he is within that 5-second range, so he will get that podium position back as long as he can stay within 5 seconds of Torvinen. And Torvinen, who has cleared Schumann now, by the way, so he's guaranteed to at least be 4th once he does serve that penalty in the knots. And Marek Vons now just trying to see if he can keep up with the likes of Wolf Matuszka, or maybe even close him down for the win. The fastest laps between these two drivers, Wolf Matuszka has set a 2:01.9 in this race. Marek Vons a 2:02.2. So Wolf Matuszka's fastest lap of the race is 0.3 quicker than what the 777 has managed. But fastest laps do not define the race. It's the consistency, it's the pace that you have throughout the race that defines it. And Wolf Matuszka, whether it was his fault or not, he ended up in a situation where a mistake was made, time was lost, and now he's a bit under pressure for the last 15 minutes of the race.
Certainly so. Had quite an easy opening, I would say. Pulled out a very large gap of 6 seconds, but just caught out by the back marker. Been very surprising for Wolf, experienced as he is, to put himself in that scenario. But last time behind the line, Wolf pulled out a 2:02.835. Vons could only react with a 2:03.167. So Wolf is looking to try and edge that gap a little bit further before the pit stops, maybe to allow for a buffer for any mistakes that may happen.
Nico Kumpu finds himself 0.6 of a second behind Schumann in the 222. This is the battle for 5th place on track as it stands. Nico Kuzma has come into the pit lane to get their mandatory stop done. So the number 12 will cycle out and see where exactly they will find themselves. The highest car that has gone into the pit lane and done that mandatory pit stop so far is the likes of Billy Octane. And looking at Nico Kumpu's car there, John, you see some shades of kind of lightly different material black in there. It looks from the sides or from the front perhaps, the car looks completely black, but to my eyes at least, from some of the angles, it looks like there is a few different shades in.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing maybe some kind of different finishes on the livery, possibly some gloss, some matte, even some satin in there, just to create that little bit of contrast. It has definitely been playing on my mind whether that car is damaged or whether it is the livery.
Custom liveries playing with the commentator's eyes here tonight, but well, Juraj Fenchek, who found his way past Floris Harsford earlier on, has now caught back up to Calandrino. So these two cars were battling earlier on for 4th place in class. Now it's a battle for 3rd place in class. And here is the race leaders coming right up behind them, and this is what you don't want as a GT3 car, to come up behind GT4s that are battling each other, because they won't want to move out of the way. It looks like they have managed to navigate them safely here on this occasion, though. That could have gone all very wrong very, very quickly. And Juraj Svenček, maybe now he can try and use the advantage of having those GT3 cars coming through to maybe get a jump over on Calandrino if the likes of Jarkko Torvinen and Martin Lawrence have a few difficulties getting past the 1-2-0.
Never know. If, you know, GT3 opens the door to you, but not your rival, could spell disaster. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Try and preempt in your mirrors where the GT3s are going to pass. Torvinen coming back up on them now. Probably try and dip to the inside here. Thinks twice about it. Maybe get a better run past the Cayman. He doesn't want to open the door any more than he has to that Audi. Again, carving through the traffic here. Something you really got to watch your mirrors for, as Torvinen makes a late lunge there. Forces the Cayman slightly wide. It's going to allow Svenček to come back up on the back of it. Going down towards the hairpin. We've seen this as a good passing place in this race so far. Does Svenček get a good enough run to maybe have a look at Calandrino? He looks, he thinks, but not alongside enough to make a move here. And I've just noticed, looking down the board, that Vic Osland does have a stop and go 10 to serve. This was why we have a stop and go 10. Obviously,
yeah,
Vic Osland catching the brakes way too late, running into the back of that Audi, and yeah, just destroying the rear end of that. That probably won't be driving all too well in the wet at the moment.
And for anyone wondering perhaps why that penalty, for example, is so severe, a stop and go 10 compared to, say, Harry Conway's incident of Andy Boardman on the very first lap, which was a drive-through penalty. The reason is because that is involving two cars in a different class. There is no reason that two cars in a different class should be coming into contact with each other. So, of course, incidents between cars of a different class are given an upped severity, and would have been a drive-through penalty can only be upped to a stop and go 10. So, unfortunately for Andrea Vic Osland, that is the penalty that they will have to serve for that incident. Meanwhile, looking back at the battle here, third place in GT4, Svenček now. Is he going to have a look? Calandrino goes to the inside. You can tell exactly what line he wants to defend from the 107. Svenček has a look, wants to go for the cutback. Can he make it work? And I think he has made it work somewhat. He's going to be on the outside line for turn 2, though. Calandrino, he's going to try and carry it. But look at the pace and the grip that Svenček has round the outside of turn 2 in a very, very nice move.
That is some really good pace shown by Svenček there. Definitely looking at the last time by on the lap times, it was much quicker than Calandrino, so I think it was bound to happen. As we chop back to the front here, we've still got Torvinen and Lawrence locked in a fight, determined possibly by traffic at this point, as they do get past Ulrich, the GT4 leader, going into the hairpin. Torvinen runs himself a bit deep, allows Lawrence the alongside heading up to the Schumacher S's. And we know 2 into 1 doesn't always go up this part of the circuit. Lawrence, I think, sensibly backs out, gives Torvinen the inside edge as they lead each other up to sector 3. Is Lawrence going to be close enough to try and dive him? I mean, he's making it awkward. He's putting his nose there, but he's not alongside. With the 5 seconds on Torvinen, we've got to think, should Laurentius play this safe? Or, you know, should he sit behind him or make a move?
I think Martin Lawrence is trying to put a bit of pressure on Jarkko Torvinen, but fully aware that that 5-second penalty is there on the 703, so no need to go for any very rash moves, especially not this late in the race. So Martin Lawrence just going to continue onwards for now. He will still sit P3 come the end of this race as it stands. And Jordan Daly has come into the pit lane and he has got his mandatory pit stop out of the way, and now he's battling with Floris Harsford. He's going to be on the outside here coming into the final chicane. So the likes of Jordan Daly now racing for a 5th place in class. It'll be a very, very good finish for Jordan Daly, who, fair to say, had a very, very poor race 1 and has had a nice recovery so far for the rest of the season. We saw Floris Harsford there just getting out of shape, but defending the inside line. It's clear to me down towards turn 1. There is only one line these drivers want to defend. It is that inside line, and Jordan Daly, he's going to have a try on the cutback now. Is it going to be a similar situation to what we saw between Svenček and Calandrino? No, because Floris Harsford does seem to have the inside through turn 2 covered very nicely. Oh, a little bit of contact. Jordan Daly just taps the back of Floris Hartswood, but he's not going to gain any advantage.
Certainly could see the Mercedes grunt down the main straight there, absolutely kicking in, not even in the slipstream of the Cayman, and he managed to draw alongside. So that'll be something that's probably in the back of Hartswood's mind. You know that any big long straight, that Mercedes could be putting its nose up the inside.
Jordan Daly will continue to battle. Not too long left in this race, and not too long left for the top 7 in GT3 to get their laps done. Just looking at 5.5 minutes left until the pit window closes. We saw one of the drivers out at Paul Ricard actually miss the pit window by 2 seconds, which is unbelievably cruel, but unfortunately, pit window exists and they have to obey it. And unfortunately, on that occasion, if you do not serve your pit stop within the required point, you will receive, I think, a 2-minute penalty that you're given. So it essentially puts you a lap down. And here is the race replay between Martin Lawrence and Jarkko Torvinen. Oh, that Audi getting all out of shape as Jarkko Torvinen heels in to serve his mandatory pit stop, and he'll get that penalty. 5-second time penalty out of the way at the same time. Here is Benjamin Schumann, now the highest placed car that has pitted, and he's looking to find his way past Rudy Filmalter at the moment, but this is a battle for position. Rudy will have to come into the pits at some point. Under no requirements here to just pull over for 222. Benjamin Schumann's going to have to find his way through, fighting at this point. Jordan Daly and Floris Hartswood still going at it again, and here comes Jordan Daly for another attempt down to turn 1.
Yeah, we saw him very strong last lap, pulling alongside the Cayman into turn 1, but it doesn't look like he's managed to do it this time. Possibly a poor corner exit. I mean, Hartswood doesn't even have to kind of think about defending, but he looks like he's possibly ran himself too deep, which has left the door open for Daly side by side into turn 2, making it very, very close and deep between those two. Can Daly get the cut back into 3? Can he make a big lunge? He is alongside, but then the inside switches back, but he's already cleared him even before the switchback. Some good driving there by Daly. Hopefully he can stretch the legs of that Mercedes and really clear a gap between himself and Hartswood, but I wouldn't put this fight to bed yet.
Jordan Daly, fantastic move there, and just showing how it is done. And here comes Jarkko Torvinen, who's fresh out of the pit lane today and trying to work his way through. So Jordan Daly will be hoping that that will help him put some time between himself and Floris Hartswood, and it has helped him do exactly that. And now here comes Jarkko Torvinen on the inside. Jordan Daly just has to lift off slightly. I think Jordan Daly has gained a bit of time on the likes of Hartswood there, but not too much going. Here is Marek Vons then. Lost out on some time to Wolf Matuszka, and he is into the pit lane. So is Martin Lawrence. So the two CLR cars into the pit lane at the same time. They will get their pit stops done, and it looks like Wolf Matuszka and Nico Kumpu will have to come in on their next time by, although, yes, Nico Kumpu has continued onwards. So Wolf Matuszka and Nico Kumpu will come in on this next lap. They have to, or they'll be facing a 2-minute penalty come the checkered flag of the race. So here we go then. It's time to find out. Will there be any mistakes in the pit lane that possibly influence the outcome of this race, or is everything going to be smooth sailing from here for Wolf Matuszka?
Super quick stop. Yeah, super quick pit stop from Vons there. No messing about. Up on the jacks. 1 litre of fuel possibly added, if that, and back down again, but not what you want to see leaving the pit lane there. The GT4 leader and Vons tangling and banging doors there. Certainly something to watch out for. That could have been a bit lethal.
45 seconds from pit in to pit out for the likes of Marek Vons. That's about 4 seconds quicker than what his teammate managed in the Audi. Looking down throughout the field, that is 2 seconds quicker than the next fastest pit stop that we have seen from a GT3. So very, very good for Marek Vons. He'll hope that that little contact with the GT4 hasn't cost him too much. And all the eyes at the moment in the pit lane are going to be purely focused on what happens with that number 25 car, because it was about 2.8 seconds between the likes of Marek Vons and Wolf Matuszka. If Wolf manages a 2 second or 3 second slower pit stop than Marek Vons. Marek Vons should, in theory, come out alongside or even ahead of the 25 as we see Andy Boardman working his way through some traffic. And here it is, Wolf Matuszka into the pit lane. The number 25 gets on, stopped before he hits the pit limit speed, so he will come through now and take that 1 litre of fuel that he needs to do. Nico Kumpu will also do the same, and here is Marek Vons. This is it. We saw this exact same situation out at Monza when it came down to the final lap of the race, and there was a bit of contact into turn 1 between the two of them. Will we have the same thing out here again? Will it be drama on the final lap between the two of them? Wolf gets stopped, and he's stopped for a few seconds there as well. Gets going again, and now he'll be working his way down towards the end of the pit lane. Gets going, and I think he is good. I think he's clear from Marek Vons. So Wolf Matuszka looks like he's got it done. That must have been, it was a 8 second from pit in to pit out. So Marek Vons, despite that quick pit stop, perhaps the time that he lost on that outlap, not just with the GT4 traffic, but with the other traffic as well, has potentially hindered him today, and Wolf Matuszka will stay in the lead.
Certainly so. I mean, traffic, again, can be, like I said, the decider in your race. Bad tangling with traffic, catch traffic in bad places, can lead your rival to pull a big gap on yourself. But looking back to GT4, the fight is much closer than GT3 at the front, as we got position switch basically on Ulrich and Verstappen to what they were earlier. Verstappen looking very racy coming up behind Ulrich, looking down the inside here into the left. Has he potentially forced a mistake? Looking towards the outside, they clatter wheels coming down into the bottom of the circuit. This is going to be a fight to the end, I believe. Ulrich covering. Yeah, Ulrich covering the inside here. Verstappen on the outside into the hairpin. They touch again, and Ulrich is off into the gravel on the outside, leaving Verstappen to go through. Will Verstappen wait and give it back? I believe he looks like he is. Yeah. Possibly fearing the penalty of the stewards. He's let Ulrich back through and back onto the fight. He's forced it once. He might be able to force it again. Believe we're going to go one more lap from what I'm looking at, possibly. Or where is Matuszka on circuit? He is into the final chicane. This could be quite close, but I don't know if they will go another lap.
It's not going to be another lap. Wolf will come around the final corner. He'll lift if he has to, but I don't think he'll have to. So Wolf Matuszka, he's going to make it 3 wins in the season so far. It won't be the perfect season for him by any means, but 3 wins from 4 is plenty for Wolf Matuszka. Marek Vons will take another 2nd place this season. He won't be happy with that. But looking back here, and there is a change on the final lap, just at the penultimate corner. There was contact between the likes of Verstappen and Martin Ulrich. Martin Ulrich's going to go wide as well, and he's going to lose out. By the looks of it, Verstappen will take a provisional win in the GT4 class, but there will be a steward's inquiry into what exactly happened. We'll get a little bit of a replay. This is all the way back down towards the hairpin, and you can just see the contact there. Christopher Verstappen gave this back. He felt that he was possibly responsible, and here we go. This is the one that may just be investigated here. Is there a bit of a contact there, maybe?
Slight bump on the transition, I believe. Just enough to unsettle Ulrich to open the door for Verstappen to go through.
Well, half a second at the line, and there will be an investigation by the stewards to see if there is anything that needs doing there. Meanwhile, CLR are going to fly home in formation with Jarkko Torvinen just looming in behind them, as it is a double podium for CLR again this season. A very, very good result for them. And a day that maybe could have been a bit more for Marek Vons yet again this season, but bested by Wolf Matuszka for the 3rd time. He'll be getting quite fed up of finishing runner-up at some point, but we do still have 2 races left of the season in which he could change that narrative. Maybe he can get back in the final 2 races of the season. We will have to see. But my word, incredible and tense until the end. The Euromasters, every race so far, it has delivered, and every single race has not been decided until the very last corner. John Dalton, It's been an interesting race here tonight. The weather has not given up throughout the course of 60 minutes here tonight. They've had to deal with the damp and greasy conditions all throughout. But what's your takeaway from the race today?
Certainly an amazing race by everyone. I mean, incredibly clean turn one, other than obviously poor Andy Borman in turn two getting put around. But yeah, fights right up to the end. GT4 being incredibly close, which is always the category to watch. Every GT4 event I've attended or raced in, it's always been the closest racing I've probably ever had in ACC.
Yeah, the GT4 category always exciting, and you can just see some of the race highlights now on your screen as we will be preparing for a week's time in which we will head out to Spain, and we'll hope that there'll be some more clear weather like we had at Monza and Imola as well to welcome us over there. But we're heading to Barcelona for the fifth round of the season before we then head to Spa for the final round of the year. And well, I think we'll have a bit of a sunset race at Spa Francorchamps for the end of the season. I believe we ended the last Euromasters at Spa as well, so following a bit of tradition there as well. Same how we started out at Imola. But Wolf Matuszka is your winner in the GT3 class today, and provisionally at least, the winner in the GT4 class is Christopher Verstappen. We will bring you an update on anything that does happen into that investigation if we can before we head out here tonight. But before that, like to say a big thank you to our partners here at Racing Club International. Plus, Race Department, if you're looking for AC mods or sim racing mods in general, really, and you're also looking for the latest news in sim racing, you can check out Race Department. They have a fantastic forum over there. AK Informatica, if you want some new PC equipment, or maybe you want to host some servers yourself, all of our races are hosted on their servers, so it provides some fantastic tools for us to go racing here at Racing Club International. Driver 61, if you want to drive and win like Wolf Matuszka, then you can do so with access to the Sim Racing Academy. It only costs $10. You can get 25% off by using the code that we have in the description below. Fanatec, you know plenty about them. Some of the best sim racing equipment that you can get on a budget now as well with the new CSL DD. A much more price competitive option for a lot of people out there looking to get into direct drive or sim racing in general. You can check them out and use our affiliate link in the description below to support RCI at no extra cost. And Sim Racing GP, if you want to find some races in some other sims to go out and enjoy yourself in, or perhaps you want to start a community of your own someday, then Sim Racing GP might have the tools you're interested in to get started today. So do go and check them out. Well, we will be back in a week's time. As for what is going on for the rest of the week, there is plenty around here. The Diamond Drive Cup Round 2 will be kicking itself off on Wednesday. And of course, it is really exciting to see the Diamond Drive Cup back here at RCI. They'll be heading out to the Hungaroring, and I believe it'll be another 6-minute race for them. On Thursday, the GT4 Championship returns, and they'll be heading out to Zolder. There'll be two 20-minute races for that one, and you can catch Jesse Lee and Tim Peck for all the commentary on that race. And I believe for the commentary on the Diamond Drive Cup, you can also catch Jesse Lee and Nate Norbury. Then when it comes to Friday, they'll also be at Zolder, same as the Thursday GT4 Championship. So the main GT3 Championship that we have here heads to Zolder on Friday, and you'll catch Mike Jones and Jesse Lee in the box for that one. And then on Saturday, there is no Night Owl Championship this week. That's because the 10 Hours of Nurburgring is on the first round of the World Tour. We had qualifying in Superpole just on the weekend, and well, it was incredibly close and incredibly exciting, and we cannot wait to get the season started. And just looking through, I think we have. Is that a bit of a resolution between the incident there? No, it isn't. That's 44 and 777. So we don't have a resolution between the incident of Christopher Verstappen and Martin Ulrich, unfortunately, before we head off here tonight. We'll have to reconvene in a week's time when we get to Barcelona for the fifth round of the Euromasters. But from myself here tonight, from Stewie behind the cameras, John Dalton, our special guest, mid-season here, and all the staff and stewards here at RCI. Thank you very much for joining tonight. We will see you in a week's time in Barcelona.